It is most people's first question when they decide to try tutoring. Where on earth will I find any students? We're going to try and answer that today. We're going to look at a range of strategies you can use to find students quickly in the short term and also over the longer term in a more sustainable way. Let's get into it. Hello, I'm Sarah, and for almost 10 years I was a UK primary school teacher. I now run my own tutoring business, and today we are talking about where I found students for that business and where you can too. It is important to say that when I started tutoring, I had been teaching for a long time and I was a qualified teacher, which means the information I'm going to share now is particularly relevant for people entering tutoring from a similar background to me. However, not exclusively. People enter tutoring with all sorts of backgrounds. Not all of them are qualified teachers, but lots of these tips will work for anyone entering the business. There also isn't a right place for everybody to look for students. I know some people much prefer the security of an agency and the ease of an agency. They will coordinate all the payments. You won't have to chase for that. They'll bring students to you. Whereas other people, like me, prefer the independence of having students through your own business and being completely in control of that. But then it does put you in a more precarious situation in terms of having to chase pay and have uncomfortable conversations. So the choice is yours. Try them out, see what works for you, as always. Okay, first of all, let's think about how you find students fast. This may be when you're just starting out or you just need an uptick in students because you've had quite a few drop off recently for some reason. My first advice, obvious but true, ask around. Sometimes the universe works in mysterious ways and serendipitous connections just happen. Things just come together. So let everyone know that you have some space. Ask if anybody knows of anyone wanting tutoring. I would put it out on your social media, your personal social media if you're comfortable doing that. And if you are a teacher, ask any other teachers you know who may be tutors if they are maybe full and have inquiries that they could pass on to you. I definitely did that for a few of my colleagues who have just been starting out in tutoring because I'm not taking on new students at the moment. So I was able to pass on their name for people who came to me with inquiries. Just get the word out. You never know who might be listening. If that doesn't work or isn't an option for any reason, I would say that agencies are the way to go for finding clients quickly. They already have an established reputation, they'll rank high in Google searches, and people will be going straight to them when they don't know where to start looking for a tutor. There are students on there waiting, ready for you, and it's a prime space to advertise yourself. Of course, the downside of that is that all agencies have to earn their money from somewhere. That's sometimes through a commission on lessons or sometimes through an introduction fee. I would recommend finding agencies or websites that allow you to set your own rate. So that could be that they charge the client an introduction fee or a contact fee, but then you treat them as your private clients. Or it could be that they take a commission, but you're able to set your own rate before they do that. In those circumstances, I generally do charge my normal rate and let the agency put their commission on top. Often parents who are approaching those agencies are expecting to pay a premium fee, and that's part of the agency's job, is to advertise and market themselves as worthy as of that fee. That's partly why I'm working with them, and what they're earning their money on is so that I can charge the fee that I want to charge. That is my view on it. I offer reduced prices to parents in other ways. I wouldn't do that by going through an agency. I would say there are probably more options for this as a qualified teacher than if you're someone who's unqualified. It can be much harder to find an agency that will pay you a decent rate. It's possible, but obviously my experience is as a qualified teacher, so I can only suggest agencies I've worked with in that capacity. None of these companies that I'm going to mention I have any connection with other than I found some students through them and I found them good to work with. So these are suggestions if you're UK based like me, but have a search for places in your local area. The places that parents will be looking for tutors will be different depending on where you are and depending on your niche. A couple of websites that I found good were First Tutors and childcare.co.uk. I didn't get loads of students through these, but I picked up a few. They also did take a little bit longer to find those students, but it's worth signing up to. They both charge an introduction fee or a contact fee for parents to get in touch with you, and then I just charge them as normal. If you're going to put your name up and your profile up on one website, you might as well copy it across to lots of others, because you can pretty much use the same profile, you can use the same picture. If you've done the work, just get your name and your face out there. The other agencies I used were Teachers to Your Home, which when I started did have a set rate. It was about £35 per hour, but they now let you set your own rate and then take their commission on top. They're really great to work for. They have lots of work coming in. I found they're really responsive and get back to you if you have any questions, but then they are one where you do keep charging through their website for however long you teach that student. I also work with a smaller agency called Bright Light Education that were advertising on Facebook groups, I think, and I did a little interview with them, and I'm now featured on their website as well. And again, they send through jobs when parents inquire, and you can reply if you're interested, and they will pass on your details to the parent. I'm not sure if they still take on new teachers, but there are plenty of these smaller agencies around, so take a look at either places that are local to you or places that are advertising for new tutors. I haven't found there's any need to either pay to advertise or pay to contact parents, but that is an option. If you're struggling, a lot of websites will offer their payment scheme where you have to pay a monthly fee and then you can only contact people who inquire with that. I personally didn't use those. Childcare.co.uk has something like that, but either you or the parents can pay, so I just only responded to parents who were able to contact me and had paid. If you are struggling, there are websites that take a bigger commission. Tutorful is the one that seems to get most work for me and where I am, and it's a good standby if I'm short on clients. And I stayed on that particularly when I was looking to build up more daytime work, which is obviously harder to come by. But for me, those are a last resort. They do take a really big commission, which just doesn't feel fair to the parents, to be honest. Take a look and see which will work for you and which will work for your area. If you can, try and ask local tutors as well. There's lots of really brilliant Facebook groups for tutors networking where you can ask people about their experiences, places they've found helpful, unhelpful. That's always a great place to ask for any advice if you can find something local to your area as well. Now, my tips for getting students quickly through this website, of course, it all depends on your profile. You've got to have a great profile. You want to really show off your experience and skills as a teacher, but also your teaching style and your USP. What is your unique selling point that means they should choose you for their tutor rather than somebody else? And when you're thinking about this, I would really consider what sort of customers you want to attract. So for me, I am not looking for people who want a guaranteed score on a test. For example, there are people that do that very well and have very rigorous programs and say, we can get your child to get an A. It's always a little bit dubious because I don't think you can ever guarantee those things. So that's not the route that I choose to go down. My key to my business is in its name. It's called Confidence Boost Tuition. I work with students to help them boost their confidence, and that can be working up to an exam, but it could also be more generally from children who have school-based trauma, who just really are broken down and really lack confidence in themselves and their abilities. With children who are unable to attend school for any reason, I do sorts of social and emotional work. It gives me a broad enough net that I get the variety that I want, but it means that people know from looking exactly who I am and what I do. And really sell yourself in that profile. It's not a time to be modest. It is a sales pitch. If it helps get somebody else to write it for you or to look over it and add things in, think about what your friends, your students, your bosses would say about you, what makes you a great teacher, and put it in their words, because you do have to make yourself up, as uncomfortable as that can be. It is worth it. Then if people do inquire, respond quickly, respond confidently. I'd recommend taking some time when you're working out your advert to consider questions that might come up. Obvious ones about pricing, things like cancellation policies, whether you're willing to take students for one-off lessons or you want them to be regular. Do you work in the school holidays? I could do a whole separate video of things to prepare for that, but just be ready to be able to give confident responses when people send you a message. You don't want their message to sit there for 3 days without a reply, because they'll move on and find somebody else. It's also useful if you need clients quickly to be able to offer face-to-face tutoring, if that's possible for you. and to be able to offer tutoring out of school hours. And that's obviously particularly relevant if you're working with children, but true also for adults if they're working 9-to-5 jobs. The more flexible you can be, the more likely you're going to be a good fit for a student. Face-to-face obviously reduces the pool of people that are going to be interested. If you're just offering online, there's going to be a lot more options for those parents. But if you can offer face-to-face and you're in the right location with space at the right time, then it's very likely that parent is going to go with you. I would also offer it even if you have limited availability, because I've had parents inquire for face-to-face tuition, but when I've said I only have online slots available, they've been willing to give that a go, and that's actually how I've got a lot of my online students. Lots of them are local to me. I just couldn't make the travelling work. So it's well worth offering that face-to-face tuition if that's a possibility for you. Obviously, outside school hours is when most children have availability and most parents have availability. There is daytime work, but it does take longer to pick up. I'm afraid I don't have any quick fixes for how to earn work in the daytime apart from supply teaching or being a supply TA. I used these agencies when I was first getting started, and I actually stayed on them for longer, just with daytime availability to help build up my daytime clients. As I say, they are out there, it is possible. If you're really desperate for daytime work, I believe some supply agencies or SEN agencies do offer daytime tutoring. I haven't used them myself. I don't know about their rates of pay. I think they tend to be a little bit lower, but it's worth looking into if that's something that you're interested in. Okay, now on to the longer term strategies. If you are more comfortable working with agencies or working through someone who takes payment for you, then by all means stick with them. If you, like me, prefer to work with people independently, then there are ways to build up a brand and to build up your inquiries over weeks or months or even years. First thing is ask for reviews from your students. I do this about once every 6 months when people are feeling generous, often when people have finished tutoring with me, maybe around Christmas, at the end of the school year. Ask people to put a review up, but then share it across lots of different platforms. So if people put up, for example, a review through an agency website, I would then screenshot that and put it on my Facebook page, on my website, on places other people can see it. As a consumer, I am very unlikely to buy something or employ someone without seeing reviews. So I know that they're important for a lot of people. It's a really easy way to enhance your marketing. Lots of people's go-to, I think, is to advertise on Facebook groups. Now, there's a few strategies with this. There are quite a few Find a Tutor Facebook groups out there. Take a look for ones in your area where either parents can inquire and you can comment or message them, or you can put your adverts up. I find these to be a bit hit and miss. I haven't got loads of work through them just because they're often so saturated, it's difficult to be seen. But I know there are people that spend a lot of time plugging away on those, particularly home educator groups as well, sharing information, making themselves a valuable resource on there. So then when people are looking for students, they will come to them. It's also worth on those commenting, even if it seems like you don't stand a chance of getting a reply from that student. Quite often I think people go and search on the page and look through previous comments and will then contact you out of the blue a few months later because they've seen your comment on there. So it's always worth, with those comments, just putting a little blurb about who you are, what you do. Again, get your USP in there, and then if people spot that and think you're the right person for them, it may be that they contact you. I know lots of people also use local Facebook groups, so they go on the mums or dads or parents in X local area and either advertise if the groups allow advertising, or just check if people are asking about tuition, answer questions about schools, things like that. Again, it's not something I've used personally, but I know a lot of people do have success with that. I have had a little bit more success with tutor-to-tutor referral groups. So sometimes there are professional networking groups that do allow people to say, I've had an inquiry from a student I can't accommodate, does anybody have space? So it's always worth keeping an eye on those as well. I got one of my very first students from one of those, from someone going on maternity leave and looking for someone to cover her students. I do find them to be a bit less chaotic and a bit less of a free-for-all than the generic Find a Tutor groups. Of course, the other thing to do is advertise yourself as a business in all the ways businesses advertise themselves. So you could do flyers and pop them in your local church hall, coffee shop, places where parents would hang out. You can do posters in similar places and set yourself up a website, make yourself a business presence. For me, the most success I've had on this is putting myself on Google My Business. So that means that you show up on Google Maps as a business. That then links to a very basic Google website that I'm planning to update soon and make a little bit more jazzy with a bit more functionality. But Google will automatically generate a really basic website that you can put your contact details on, you can put reviews on, you can put updates on. I have a link to an inquiry form that's just a Google form where parents send me some basic information and ask me to give them a call. I think that's also a great thing to have on there because it's a call to action. When somebody goes on your website, has a quick look, thinks, oh, they look interesting, they won't just go, I'll call her later. If it's late at night, for example, they can just send that form through. I'll pick it up when I see it and then I can call them. So it opens up that communication straight away. I really recommend doing that. Also, get your reviews on there. That's the place I ask people to put reviews is on Google My Business because it's a trusted source of information for lots of people. I know it's where I always go to check business reviews, and you can just screenshot them and share them to other places as well. I have a similar process with my Facebook page. When I started, I put quite a lot on there just to build up a backlog of posts that showed the type of tutor I was. So I asked parents if I could take anonymous photos during their child's lessons so I could share the type of activities I do. I could share a bit about my philosophy. I think I did a little day in the life on there. I will repost things that, again, show my sort of educational philosophy, so that that's the place that I direct people to if they want to know more about me, because I think it shows over time me in a nutshell and the type of tutoring they can expect from me. Again, if they're looking for something different, I absolutely want them to go and find someone else that can provide that. But hopefully I will be exactly what they're looking for. I do get inquiries through the Facebook page. I use it in a similar way to the website so that it directs them to the inquiry form, and then I'll give them a call to talk through how I can help. But get your information on there. So things like my prices, things like my availability, I have very publicly for people to see, because the last thing I want to be doing is answering 20 messages about my pricing, having spent 10 minutes talking to each of those people just for them to go, well, we can't afford that. So my view on that is get that information out there. Let people research you. If you're feeling ambitious, you could, of course, go for a YouTube channel, share lots of information. For me, this isn't a way I'm finding students. That's not my thought process with this at all. I'm doing this to support other tutors. But if you did a child-focused channel and put out videos or a website to help children with revision, that may well be a way to find students. Again, it's not something I've tried myself, but it sounds like a good idea. I've also heard good things about LinkedIn. This is on my list of things to try and test out. I've heard particularly good things about LinkedIn for working with international students, that a lot of international students in other time zones, so daytime work, will find tutors through LinkedIn. I'm not very good on LinkedIn. I don't currently understand very well how to use it or how to get my name out there, but that is on my list of things to test out, hopefully this year. So as well as advertising yourself, setting yourself up as a business, you could go bold and approach local schools. This isn't something that I chose to do, but I know lots of people who do it. Schools are funny old places and often all work differently. Some schools won't be able to hire individuals for certain reasons. Other schools are really open to it. Again, it's a bit of a look of timing. If you happen to approach a school and your specialism is just what they're looking for, maybe you're a dyslexia tutor, for example, maybe you have an expertise of working with children with social emotional needs, and that's exactly what they need at that moment, you might get lucky. I know other people also organise after-school groups, after-school clubs that parents pay for, but based out of schools. There are definitely options there if you think creatively. It's not my area of expertise, but have a Google if you're looking for inspiration, see what other people are doing. And if you've got contacts in schools, maybe ask them if any of those ideas would be appealing. But most of all, don't be quiet. You've got to let everyone know what you're doing. It's very hard to tutor secretly. So get the information out there across your social media. I am not a big personal social media user at all. but I did invite all my Facebook friends to like my Facebook page when I started, and lots of them are really lovely and do share things when I post them, share when I have spaces for students, often putting really lovely things along with them, so putting a bit of a personal recommendation up there. It's so valuable, and you never know who's going to be looking. I've had inquiries from people in my street because someone put on the street WhatsApp group that they were looking for a tutor, and now people who live near me know that I'm a tutor. If they hear of someone looking, they point them my way, sorry. And those kinds of things are invaluable. That does take time to build up, and you can't force it, but those personal recommendations are really valuable. And speaking of which, word of mouth will kick in eventually. I am now at the point where I'm only taking new students from recommendations. I don't think that will last forever, and I will use other sources when I have lots of space, but word of mouth will kick in because you're great at what you do. So people will start approaching you saying, I was given your number as a tutor, do you have any space? My friend really loves what you've done for their daughter. This is our situation. That will happen. The word of mouth will start and we'll get there. It might take a while, but that is the best and easiest for you long-term strategy. Now, the other question about students is often when to start looking for students or when to start advertising. For example, if you know you're going to be leaving a school at the end of term, when do you start to pick up new students? When's too early? When's too late? There's not really a right or a wrong answer to this. You can start whenever you feel ready, really. I started working with students in the couple of months before I left my job because I was working 4 days a week and I had the time and the energy to do that. If you don't, that's not a problem. What you can do is put your profile up saying space is available from whatever date. You don't have to put that as I'm brand new, I'm only just starting. You can almost make it seem like you're full and you're just so popular you don't have any spaces until this date. But then you can start building up clients, maybe do some trial lessons with them before you're available, if that's something you're comfortable with. That also gives you a little bit of security for if you're starting tutoring full time, that you're not jumping in completely at the deep end, you do have some work lined up. So overall, I would say don't overthink it. Just get your name out there, get your profile out there, start looking for clients and see what you get back. If what you're doing isn't working, change your approach, change your strategy, look somewhere different, get people to read over your profile, give you some feedback, adjust your pricing, but just start somewhere and see what happens. That's the best you can do. If you're planning to use any of those tips, drop me a comment to let me know what you're going to try next. Give yourself a little bit of accountability to actually do it, and good luck finding students. Having that conversation and booking a first session with a student always gives me a little buzz. It's a great feeling. So enjoy the process, enjoy the ride, and good luck.